Good evening, Hawkeye basketball fans. We won't get to the football yet. Won't depress anybody. The Hawkeyes defeating the Clemson Tigers this evening 74-71 at the Emerald Coast Classic down in Florida. And we are here to talk about it. Expect to be joined by Coach Close in a little bit. And, of course, we've got a lot still to do this evening. We got post-game coverage here for basketball, and we'll be on live with Coach Don Patterson talking football in under an hour. So keep it right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm throughout the evening. This coming half hour of the show, sponsored by Iowa Floor Covering, as you can see in the upper right corner of your screen. They've got their Tough Core Click Together 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring. For more information on the great guys down in Bondurant at IFC, visit iowafloorcovering.com/DIY. You can check out their stuff. There's a link in the description of all of our content. Appreciate the guys at Iowa Floor Covering in Bondurant. All right. The phone line is open. We have kind of a limited time slot this evening because we've got football post-game and because this game went not into overtime, but it did go over time, so to speak. 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601 is the number to call to talk Iowa hoops. I'm already behind on the chat here. Destiny Pirate, I see a question from you. We'll save for Coach Close. Yes, this was a weird game. I mean, we're talking about a team in Clemson that I thought played physical from the get-go, made things hard on Iowa on the offensive end. Iowa never really got a rhythm offensively. But to win this game on a neutral court against not a great Clemson team, I think a good Clemson team. They were middle of the pack of the ACC last year. I know they've had their ups and downs so far this year, but that's not a bad team. On a neutral court, you won. Regardless of how you won the game. That's a good win for Iowa. It's a solid win, and you'll take it any day of the week. I'm going to get to the officials here in a couple minutes. We're going to have to kind of move through our phone calls relatively quickly this evening, so it's nothing personal to our callers, but we're going to kind of have to go at a decent pace this evening to get through all of our content. And, of course, you can join us over on the football post game after, and we'll see where that show takes us. Let's get to our first caller who's on hold. Thank you for calling Iowa post game here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey, it's the real MVP. How are you doing this evening?
Doing good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. First question I'll ask you, since I know you don't have a lot of time, is Iowa had a pretty big or a sizable lead in the second half, and then Clemson started chipping away at it. What do you think changed? Do you think Iowa just wasn't making shots? Do you think Clemson's defensive scheme changed? What do you think caused Clemson to claw back into the game?
Well, as I said, they were physical from the get-go. Things were, Iowa was going to have a hard time pulling away in this game, regardless of the situation. You're up by 12. You just never felt like Iowa was going to put their foot down because everything was, how many free throws they have in this game? I think like 34 free throw attempts. It was a physical game. I thought the officiating was poor at times. 30 free throw attempts in this game for the Hawks. And I'll give Clemson credit. They were able to drive and kick, and I thought offensively they clearly played their best segment of hoops in the final 6-7 minutes of this game. And Iowa had a problem defending without fouling and gave up a number of open threes. In fact, the game should have been over in the final 20 seconds. Gave up a couple of late threes that kept Clemson in it. So, like I said, this just seemed like I'm comparing it to Iowa's one other test this year, which is, drill MVP was at Seton Hall. Iowa passed both tests, but I thought this looked like a better team defensively. This is a much better team defensively in Clemson than compared to the Pirates.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. And here, it seemed like Clemson was able to get a lot more rebounds than Seton Hall was able to do. Or is that something you're worried about with the center position, the physicality going forward?
Well, Iowa out-rebounded them 46-32.
Didn't feel like that watching the game.
Yeah, it never feels like that. But, they dominated in second chance points. I don't know what those numbers were. But, rebounding is a concern. I was actually impressed with rebounding this evening.
Fair enough. A final few things I'll say is Iowa State beat North Carolina today. So that'll help Iowa's non-conference schedule if Iowa defeats them. So
Yep, that's a
that
good
is
win
a
for
positive.
Iowa fans. Don't like Iowa State. That's fine, but you're absolutely right, Daryl MVP. It's good that Iowa State's having success. That's another opportunity. And by the way, it's good that Duke bounced back today. Got a good win against
Yeah.
Xavier because Duke had been struggling. Daryl MVP, appreciate the phone call. I got to move on, but you're welcome to call back in with Coach Patterson.
Yeah, no problem. Hit the like and subscribe button, people.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's get to our other caller on hold. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Alex Padilla makes me so horny, baby. Let's go, Hawkeye.
Oh boy, the teeny boppers are out early this evening, Gary. They're out early and often.
Wow.
You can tell that the fans are in a spirited mood this evening, right, Gary?
I guess so. My good, too much turkey.
Too much turkey. Gary, let's get down to this. I know you're appreciate you first of all taking the time this evening. I know you're on vacation and hopefully enjoying that vacation. Let's stick to positive, and that is what Iowa was able to do on the hardwood this evening. The Hawkeyes grinding out a 74-71 win, which was not always pretty. But as our last caller, we kind of came full circle there. They actually dominated on the glass, which was a surprise to me. Now I know Clemson's probably not the biggest team, not the longest team that I was going to face, but that's a positive. And certainly Patrick McCaffrey played well. We understand the struggles with Chris Murray. But just seemed like offense was so hard to come by. I give Clemson a lot of credit for how they played Iowa defensively. I said at the outset, their physicality. What did you see that made things so hard for Iowa?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't see the first half. We had some technical difficulties down here, but we did get to see the second half, and so I'm not sure how they built the lead. But I think the good news is every time Clemson made a run, they were able to get themselves corrected and found a way to survive. Which these games are hard to play. You're going down to a warm weather, and it's a tournament, and it's just totally different. And we've seen that in tournaments all across this country of, the upsets that have happened already with a lot of real good teams getting beat in these type of tournaments. So to survive and advance, as everybody talks about, is good. And now they got a chance to win a championship tomorrow night, and that was the goal going in.
And Gary, I made the comment, a friend of mine watching the game with me, I just made the comment during the game that, look, it's obvious that Chris Murray did not play his best game offensively, but did give them 12 boards. Tell me how big it is just to be able to win when your star player is struggling like this.
It's terrific. And I think it does indicate the type of player he is when he has an off 90. I'm guessing he did finish with a double-double. And that's going to happen. So you need other guys to step up, and they had enough players do that. You mentioned Patrick, and Tony made some big free throws down the stretch. So a good team win, and I would guess Chris will play a lot better tomorrow night.
Let's get to Tony, who's on hold. Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Hey, Tony.
The last time I called, I mentioned that farewell tour. I had to dig through the closet, so I had to pull out this classic for Coach.
Oh, that is a classic.
The 93 farewell tour. That was the AC Earl, Looking Bill, looks like, Val Barnes.
Terrific.
So those are good days.
Were you at were you at that game?
I would have been 10. I was not at that game. I remember the ones in like the later 90s.
Yeah.
When it would have been the tail end of the Davis years. Couple of things I want to comment since we're limited on time. There are two things I just wanted to bring out. Number one, when we went to the under 4 timeout and I could see Perkins going to the huddle and you could just see the look on his face from the TV cameraman, I was like, he's not going to let us lose this game. You could just see like the look on his face, and it's like he's such a gritty warrior out there that you could tell he was not going to let us lose this game.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I wanted to comment was anyone who's watched Iowa basketball knew on that last out of bounds or inbounds play on the baseline, you knew exactly what was going to happen. You could see, I saw Connor in the bottom. I'm like, they're going to pass it to him, and then they're going to pass it. It was clear as day to anyone who scouted Iowa.
Gary, real quick, I want to ask you on that because I saw it too. I said, this is Connor's going to run out of bounds and it's going to be a flip back to him. And obviously it caught Clemson off guard. Why does that seem to work so well against non-conference opponents? Doesn't that show up in a scouting report?
I don't know. Have they had to use it this year? Probably not. So they'd have to go back to last year and come up with that. It would be a thorough scouting report if somebody had that had that in it. Great play call. Not only throwing out of bounds, but then running back and getting it back to the inbounder to where there was no chance for them to foul until there was hardly any time left. So really well executed play.
What a difference between 4.5 seconds and 1.3. I mean, just
No
night
doubt.
and day, right?
Yeah.
And Gary, I'm just real quick. This is completely moot. And then if you've got a final question, Tony, I'll let you go. But Gary, is there any circumstance there with 1.5 when you're up 2 where you deliberately miss, or do you just make that free throw to make sure you're up 2? Because I was thinking, 1.5, maybe you think about missing the second free throw.
Yeah. I think Clemson must not have had a timeout.
No.
If they had had a timeout, then I think I probably would have missed it.
Okay.
Because as the commentator mentioned, it's a lot easier to score throwing the ball out of bounds than it is to grab a rebound, get clear, and then throw in it's got to be a 3/4 court bomb. Now that would get you beat. Whereas, if it's, if you're making the free throw and they're taking it out, then it's going to be a tie game. But I'm guessing because Clemson did not have any timeouts left, that's probably the reason why he made it. Although sometimes you see players try to miss it and make it. So, but I think in most circumstances, I would have missed that just because I think it's harder to be successful at getting a rebound and then getting clear and knocking something from that far out.
Yeah, that was my line of thinking. Tony?
And then just the one we are allowed to call during the football show for basketball, right?
I don't think Don Patterson's going to argue that at all, Tony.
Okay. And then my question is for Coach Close, and then I'll let you guys go. You were mentioning, Corey, about the miss on purpose. Now, I want to add on to that. What's your philosophy, Coach Close, up 3? Do you foul? If you're up 3 in the
yeah, it depends on how much time is left in certain circumstances and what kind of team you're playing, how good a 3-point shooting team they are. So I think there's scenarios where you might do it and where you might not. It's certainly something that you got to practice because it's not as cut and dry as it would seem. So that's something that you need to work on to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Thanks for your time. I'll see you in an hour or so, Corey. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Tony. All right, let's get to our next caller who's on hold. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close, who's on the line.
Zach, how's it going, Corey?
Good. How are you, Zach?
Pretty good. Trying to listen to your video, watching the women. So
there you go. Very good.
Hard fought win. Agundale played some really good minutes in the first half. I thought Bowen had a pretty good game. I do think the new flopping rule is going to be very subjective. I did not like the one it called it on Sanford. That was pretty horrible. So
I'm guessing, Gary, you didn't see the flop call on Peyton Sanford.
No, but I tell you what, I've seen a lot of flopping calls be called.
Gary, I told you this. I asked Fran that question. Do you like that rule? And he said yes. That was you got to watch that. It was an egregious call on Peyton. He sunk a 3 and was clearly knocked, right? So he clearly got knocked to the ground. They call a flop. So it's literally a 2-point swing. So he should have had an extra free throw. Instead, they give Clemson a free throw. Terrible call. And Fran did not react. Maybe it's because Fran has been an advocate for that call, but I'm glad you brought that up, Zach, because that was an absolutely egregious call.
Yeah, and considering, the second half when the Clemson point guard started driving, he just started seemed like screaming as loud as he could to try to influence calls. And I think you might have talked about this too. I was not a big fan of the commentators, especially trying to almost influence that shot clock violation.
That's what Louis says the same thing. So now sports announcers get to inject their opinions to the refs. I said the same thing at the end, Gary. I've never seen anything like that, and I appreciate the officials getting it right. I was screaming the same thing. I said, there is possible that the clock is not going to immediately drop to 2 just because it's inbounded, right? We don't get to see the milliseconds there. I've just never seen officials confer with commentators. Was that bizarre to you?
No, well, they, they'll go over and use the monitor because sometimes that monitor is different than the one that they want to have on the other side of the court. So I think what happened was they initially looked to see whether he got the shot off or not. And then
Right.
somebody made him aware of the shot clock. And now they had to go look at that. And that's where all that confusion was, though. But in the end, they got the call right. So can't be too upset.
What doesn't make any sense is you have the one commentator saying, well, I want to notify he basically said, I want to notify the officials. It's not your job to notify the officials. There's commentators that disagree with calls all the time. They don't say, oh, I think you got that call wrong. Isn't that sort of, I mean, that's, to me, that takes away from being unbiased and objective as a commentator. But it's CBS Sports Network, so I'm sure, do you know that color guy, Gary, out of curiosity?
Yeah. He's a former coach. Good guy. Real good guy and a real good coach. He's the former coach of Villanova.
Okay, I figured you probably knew who he was, but
Jay Wright. Yep. Steve Lapp.
Anything else, Zach?
Nope, just again, a nice hard fought win. Hopefully the women can hang on against Oregon State.
Amen, sir. Thank you for the call.
Thank you.
All right. Before we get to Ryan, and again, we're kind of on a limited clock here this evening. Again, Iowa defeating Clemson 74-71. Do want to give a shout out real quickly to Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm. Call Brad and his team for the best quote in the area, 515-256-6480. You can also visit him online at www.bradvanmeter.com, whether we're talking life insurance, auto insurance, boat insurance, renters, whatever. Give his team a chance to get you a great rate on great coverage. Let's get to Ryan, who is on hold. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Hi, Ryan.
Hi.
They won. I'm good.
Yeah, great day to be a Hawkeye.
Well, I'm a great day. A little better.
Right. Anything go? Why would you say that, Corey? Why would you say that?
You watch football, Ryan. I know you watch football.
Yeah, I try to. Hey, I guess a couple things. Yeah, I was going to say on that flop call, the guy's whole backside drove into Sanford as he was falling to the ground, which made him actually fall to the ground. It was absolutely unbelievable. They would call that a flop. To me, a flop is what Northern Iowa made a living doing for years, especially, 10 years ago, if you remember that game. Now that was flopping. But and then the other I was really shocked that announcer made such a big deal about the clock. It was pretty obvious. It takes a second from 3 to become 2. That's exactly what I saw. I saw probably half a second. Bracha got it off, and I don't know why it took 10 minutes to figure that one out. It was just ridiculous. Couldn't help but think there was going to be a way that they were going to find a way for us to lose that game. But, games like this make you very, very tough. Gary, you're real familiar with the Badgers. We have them coming up fairly shortly. They lost a heartbreaker to Kansas, won a good game today, I think down in Atlantis. Man, this is going to be tough, but games like today are really what are going to allow us to win some of those real tough, close games against, like, say, a Wisconsin come Big Ten season.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why you play in those kind of tournaments, to get that kind of competition and get in those kind of scenarios where you find out what you're made of and who can you count on and who maybe not. And you don't want to go into the Big Ten season playing one blowout after another, because you're not going to find out. Like today, I thought Iowa's ball screen defense was a little shaky. They were giving up some open threes on that cross-court pass. That's something they got to shore up, and they may not have found that out, playing against teams that aren't very good. So to get exposed and learn and yet be able to win, that's about the best of both worlds.
Well, I think my best takeaway was it was a good ACC team that we beat without our best player having a great game. And so when others can't step up, it shows that we're not necessarily going to have to be the Chris Murray show to win.
Yep, I think that's a good point.
So last question, Coach. I asked you last week. You said to wait a week or two. I'll ask again. I assume you may have gotten to see Duke play the other night.
I have not seen Duke play at all, which is crazy.
Okay.
But I tell you what's been really interesting in college basketball, and this is just kind of off the top of my head, but I don't see any dominant teams out there at all. Kansas, Wisconsin played well to lose to Kansas by 1, but I wasn't overly impressed with Kansas. I think they're
Kansas
good.
lost tonight, Gary.
Yeah, did they? Yeah. I don't think they're great. North Carolina loses to Iowa State. Iowa State's a pretty good team, but that's probably most people describe that as a shock. And there's some other teams that have really struggled. So I think it's really wide
Maybe
open.
it's Gonzaga's here.
Say that again?
Maybe it's Gonzaga's here.
Yeah, and even they got waxed by somebody. I think Kentucky might have beat them, and Michigan State turned around and beat Kentucky. So far, and I haven't seen everybody and haven't seen a lot of anybody, and that's why it's early and it's hard to make predictions like that. But I don't see a team where I'm going, whoa, I don't know if we can match up with them. I think it's wide open right now. That could change, but not only in the Big Ten, but I even think on the national scope that it's there's a lot of teams that are real good. I don't know if there's any really great dominant teams, but that could change.
All right, thanks, guys, and maybe I'll say hello to Coach Patterson in a little while.
Sounds good, Ryan. Appreciate the phone call, sir.
Thank you.
I think the Big Ten has had a pretty good week. They've had some good wins. Wisconsin played well in their tournament. Maryland is off to an undefeated start. Northwestern almost won their tournament, almost beating Auburn. So I think the Big Ten has shown itself pretty well of late.
And, Wisconsin, I tell you, took a miracle shot. I mean, that's a heck of a play to beat them yesterday.
2 miracle shots. Yeah. I mean, that regulation, that ball came right to him, and he fires it out for the 3. I mean, what are the chances of that happening again? It goes to show you how important rebounding is, and even tonight you saw it. A lot of times the game winner is not the shot that's taken, but the rebound that's put in, and people tend to turn and watch and not check out and go for the ball, and that makes that last second scenario can be crazy at times.
And Gary, another big reason is as this game was getting closer to the Final Horn. I made this comment a couple of different times. Another big reason why it was so big to win this evening. Not only is it a good win on a neutral court, you win in spite of some struggles from your guy. And let's not forget, Tony Perkins was in foul trouble the majority of this game. So there's 2 of your maybe 3 best players, maybe your 2 best players in foul trouble. You find a way to win. And this was big in the sense of strength of schedule because you do not want to play Cal tomorrow. And I would guess that TCU is going to win this evening. No, we never know. We'll see. But, boy, that would be a disaster if you're playing an 0-6 Cal team who's lost to UC Davis, Texas State, and, Garfield University. So
Where's Garfield University?
I made that one up, Gary. I'm glad you caught it, though. I'm glad you caught it. We got a question here from Destiny Pirate. He says, Coach, or Corey, for you and Coach to discuss before today, Iowa had this is not basketball related. Let's save this for football. I don't think you're the coach you intended this for, Gary. We can wait on that. Let me see the question from Joe Schmo. He says, does Gary know if any Hawks improved over the offseason, adding strength, lowering body fat, improved shooting? Well,
I would say so.
I would say several of them have proven that so far, Gary.
Yeah, I think you can go, literally go right up and down the lineup and see a lot of improvement. I don't think there's any question that the team has improved over the offseason.
Can you talk a little bit about what you saw? I know, again, you missed that first half, but second half at least. Can you talk a little bit about what was causing Chris Murray struggles? I thought they were just physical with him early, and it kind of got him off balance. Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, sometimes, I didn't get a chance to see the first half, as I said, and and it's hard to get yourself out of that rut. It looked like, obviously he was the guy they were trying to stop, and they were physical and just did a real nice job of staying in front of him. So he couldn't get any, straight shots driving to the basket. And then, you miss a few, and then all of a sudden that basket gets a little bit smaller. He missed one late in the game that he probably won't miss again the rest of the year. So it happens. And that's why I wouldn't be shocked if he has a big game tomorrow night.
Just so everybody's aware, appreciate everybody being here. We got about 160 people watching this live. The Iowa women lead Oregon State out at the Phil Knight Classic, 57-49 with 7.5 to play in the game. So that game's still in doubt against an Oregon State team that's basically playing a home game in Portland. So we'll kind of follow that as we go here throughout this evening. And, of course, that'll kind of overlap into our football show. Bob wants to know if Perkins was playing hurt. The word I got earlier before the game started was that he was 100%. I know Iowa called him probable, but I think he was pretty much full go. But when you get in foul trouble, he played. This was probably his most frustrating performance. You could just tell his body language. And again, I go back to just how Clemson played. How would you rate Clemson defensively from what you saw, Gary? I thought they did exactly what you
I thought he did a good job. And he's known as a good defensive coach. So I think that was a good test from an offensive standpoint.
Let's get to our caller. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. Who's on the line?
Yeah, this is David. I just wanted to call and say I thought Iowa played really well in the clutch. I think Perkins made a massive impact in the last 4 minutes. Obviously, he had 4 fouls, so he wasn't able to make much of an imprint going on early in the game. And like Gary, I was working, so I missed the first half. Would have loved to have seen what kind of transpired during that. But the other thing that I want to go on what the guy said earlier with the officials, I've never seen, or not the officials, the announcers, I've never seen in any game I've ever watched, announcers have that big of an impact on a game where they said something to the one ref, and the one ref goes back over and was saying, they're saying this. And he actually said that, in the game.
Well, the good news is the officials got it right. I mean, I thought that was the same thing I said at first, Gary, was that why are they even talking to the commentators? But they got it right. Is that what you ultimately want, Gary?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I think they initially looked to see if he got it off in time, and then they got into the shot clock situation. That's what I'm guessing. I could be wrong, but that's why it took so long, and they had to get a different angle and things like that. But you're right. They ended up getting it right, and that's all we can ask for.
Well, and the one crazy thing too is when I was watching just the clock, the main clock. You could definitely make an argument that he got that off in time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He got it off. He got it off in time. They were wondering if he didn't get it off in time with respect to the shot clock.
Gary, did you?
Right, and I understand that.
Was there an over the back
with just
foul
looking at
that
the
was
shot,
missed there on
the
that?
actual clock?
I didn't think so. No, I thought it was just a bang play. It just goes to show you how important rebounding is, especially air balls. Air balls are they're funny. I mean, they're a different kind of rebound. We used to have a play where we shot an air ball on purpose against zones, and it worked all the time because teams turned to check out and didn't see the ball, and we just go and lay it in. So, yep.
Did you guys find it interesting that we only played one series of defense on that zone? After they busted it with a 3, we immediately went back to man-to-man.
I think they played one other possession about 4 or 5 minutes before that after a timeout, and we're only in it for one. Only in it for one possession. They gave up an offensive rebound for a basket, and he got out of it. I think they played 2 possessions of zone, and both of them I think came after Clemson timeouts. I think just to screw them up if they got a man play called. So it didn't work. So, but I think I saw 2 possessions.
And I know I've asked you this question before, Gary. We can talk macro another night, but is that an indication, a further indication that they're going to have to roll with man-to-man? And that, if so, that worries me again when you go up against the Zach Eady's of the world and Trace Jackson Davis, where maybe they've got some depth or size inside that Iowa doesn't have.
Well, they do play the zone on out of bounds plays
Right.
almost exclusively, so they're going to have to continue to work at it. But your zone's only going to be as good as your man-to-man skills. I mean, if you're a bad man-to-man defensive team, you may be able to cover some bad players up, but you're still not going to be a very good defensive team. And I think their man defense is getting better. We'll have to wait and see with respect to foul trouble and depth where they might have to play more zone. But right now, the man has been effective, and I think they're going to stick with it.
Anything else, caller?
Yeah, I have one more question. My question, and maybe you addressed this earlier because I did not see the beginning of the show. Have you guys declared who the game ball would go to?
Well, it's got to be Patrick offensively, right, Gary?
Sounds like it. Yeah.
If you don't get Patrick McCaffrey and I mean, the guy, his final stat line, 21 points, 5 rebounds. Next closest was Chris with 10. They needed every one of those 21 points. So he made some unorthodox shots, and I give Iowa credit. This is one thing they did well tonight, Gary, was they got to the free throw line and for the most part cashed in on free throws. And as you know, those will kill you in a close game.
No doubt. Yep.
All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate. Oh, sorry.
Nope,
yeah, all you got to. Yeah, you see it all the time.
I appreciate. I'll let you go, Gary. Go.
Oh, let's go ahead. Yeah, just we're talking about the free throw shooting. So yeah, go ahead, fire away.
Oh, I was just gonna say I really appreciate everything you guys have at the end of the games, and I look forward to watching you guys carrying forward. And go Hawks. I think we have a good shot winning tomorrow, and I say that also because we were tested tonight. I think maybe they'll come with a little extra vigor. I hope. And I assume it'll be TCU, obviously. But, yeah, if we win that game, probably ranked, I don't know, anybody want to call it an idea? I'd say maybe within either 20 or in the top 20.
Could be.
Could be a lot of basketball being played this week, so a lot of results across the country. There's going to be a lot of fluctuating. Appreciate the phone call, sir.
Yep, appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been an interesting weekend, or an interesting week. And one question I want to ask you, Gary, we have a couple minutes here to finish off this show. I didn't get this in on previous shows, and I haven't went back and tracked this, and at this point I might not. But it seems like there have been more bye games that have been lost by by Power 5 teams, or Power 5 versus Group of 5 opponents, or not even Group of 5 opponents, right? Just other Division 1, non-Group of 5 Division 1 teams. More upsets this year than ever before. Have you observed that? And I mean, I know I don't have the data to support it, but is that a result you think of the transfer portal, or is it just one of those things that sometimes you have more upsets than normal?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not exactly sure. How about the start that Louisville's had? They're like 0-5. I mean that's just mind-boggling.
And don't forget they lost to a Division II team in an exhibition game.
Yeah, teams that aren't that good, with a couple of exceptions. So now it's a new coach, so maybe they're starting from scratch. But yeah, this time of the year, you just never know. That's why if you can win, even if you don't play well, and learn by it, it's a pretty good deal.
And one of those things, part of this too, that Iowa fans should be encouraged by, the Big Ten has not lost games like that for the most part. There have not been maybe one or two. Let's see, Nebraska's losses. Well, Nebraska. I mean, their losses have come to St. John's, Oklahoma, and Memphis. I feel bad for Fred Hoiberg because, boy, I don't see that thing turning around. But basically, everybody, I know Minnesota dropped one, I think, to Central Michigan. But the Big Ten has been rock solid and had some close losses, some narrow losses. I think of the Michigan State loss to Gonzaga, the Wisconsin loss yesterday. And Iowa's, of course, got a chance at a couple of really marquee wins. Now, Iowa State, just your thoughts briefly. I'm sure you didn't watch these last two games for the Cyclones, but beating Villanova and North Carolina, that's one of those games. Everybody wants to get excited about TCU and Clemson and Duke. But that Iowa State game is going to be a marquee win if you can get it.
That's going to be a terrific basketball game. Yeah, that's going to be a big time rivalry game that is going to be fun to watch. No doubt. That's the Iowa State will now be ranked, so it'll be 2 ranked teams, and that should be a lot of fun.
Any closing thoughts on this game, Gary? Obviously, survive and advance in a tournament setting, and just as an early update for people, Cal is, if this matters at this point, Cal is leading. Let me get the official score here. Still early. Yeah, Cal leads TCU 8-7. So we could have an upset brewing down in Niceville. Is it Niceville or Niceville, Gary? Do you know?
I don't know, to tell you the truth. I could lie and tell you it's Niceville, but I'd be lying. I don't know. But, I've never been there.
Any final thoughts on getting past Clemson and move on to tomorrow, potentially against TCU?
Well, like I had mentioned before, you go to those types of tournaments where there's fans around and the weather's nice and it's a resort, and those are hard games to play. That's why you see upsets in these type of tournaments. So to advance and get to the championship game is big. It's certainly a lot better than not. So I think it's a really good win against a well-coached team. Now they got a chance to play for a championship, and that's what you want to do going down there. So hopefully TCU will win that game because that'll set up a real good final.
So again, final score here this evening, folks. Iowa 74, Clemson 71. The Hawkeyes with the narrow victory and led most of this game. Very much kind of reminded me of the Iowa-Kansas State women's game, which Kansas State found a way to win. Iowa, though, dug deep and found a way to win this game. Speaking of the women, 62-53, 3:39 left to go in this one. If they win, Gary, the Iowa women win, they get UConn.
Yeah, is that a 4-team tournament? Or have they played a game out there already?
I think it's a 4-team tournament.
Yeah, so they get UConn, hopefully. Yeah, that'll be great.
So I'm assuming maybe the men was the men 4-team as well. It seems like we've had a bunch of games at the Phil Knight.
No, it's a 4-team.
It's a 4-team. Okay.
Yeah, some of them are 8, but this one was a 4.
Would be great. I'd love to. That'd be great.
Sometimes those tournaments, Corey, you play a game at your place, and then you come down and play 2 more games, and the other 4 teams that are down there, those 4 teams that played them go off somewhere else and play. So it's sometimes it is kind of an 8-team tournament, but only 4 in one spot.
So again, the final this evening for Iowa, 74-71, the win over Clemson, winning this game despite shooting just 38% from the field, just 4 3-pointers made in the game, but shot 80% from the free throw line and out-rebounded the Tigers 46-32. And again, just 9 turnovers against a very aggressive Clemson defense. And we mentioned the struggles from Chris Murray, but he still ended up with a double-double, 4 of 17 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3, but 12 boards to go along with his 10 points. Patrick McCaffrey, the big guy, or the big man on campus this evening, 21 points, 5 rebounds for Patrick. And boy, they needed all of those. Philip Rebracha, 9 points, 10 rebounds, just 1 point shy of a double-double. Sanford added 7 points. I just have to think at some point he's going to start making threes, and it's not happening right now, but you can get him to start shooting well. Look out. Tony Perkins with 11 points, 4 rebounds despite struggling with fouls. And Desante Bowen, a bit of a coming out party in that first half this evening with 9 points, 3 of 3. Very aggressive play. Good to see him knock 3 as well.
Yeah. He stepped up. They need a bit of that.
Aaron Eulis, 5 points, off 2 of 5 from the field. Connor McCaffrey gave him 6 boards. Josh Agundale with 2 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. A couple nice passes there in the first half, and they needed all of those points from Josh Agundale as well. So Iowa moves on to play potentially. This is obviously tentative because we've got to see what happens with TCU and Cal. They'll play the winner of TCU Cal tomorrow evening, 6 p.m. Central Time on CBS Sports Network. So, Gary, appreciate you tuning in or joining us. I shouldn't say tuning in, but being a part of the show this evening. And we hope to talk to you tomorrow. Hopefully we're going to be talking about a championship, and it'd be nice to, even if they, if it's another ugly win, a win is a win, and especially in a tournament setting.
Absolutely. You only get certain opportunities to win championships during the year, and this is their first, and be nice for them to take advantage of it.
All right, folks, I'm going to do one thing here before we tune off, just so everybody is aware. Let me pull this up so that everybody can quickly jump over there. If you're waiting for our post-game show with Coach Patterson, what I'm going to do right now is throw this up in the live chat. So anybody who wants to jump over there for Iowa post-game with Don Patterson starting in just a couple of minutes. I know it says approximately 9:15 p.m. We'll have a couple minutes for me to refill my coffee here, and we'll get going. Gary, we'll talk to you tomorrow, hopefully talking about another win.
Double duty for you tonight. That's good.
Absolutely. And again, thank you to Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm. Again, contact him at 515-256-6480 or visit www.bradvanmeter.com or visit him at his office, 4229 Fluor Drive in Des Moines. We'll talk to you over at the postgame show with Coach Don Patterson in a couple of minutes.